Welcome back to Stories on Sleepless Nights. Before we get started, a quick reminder everything you hear on this show is purely for entertainment, just something to keep you company in the night. So get comfortable, unwind, and let's get into today's story. Welcome back to Stories on Sleepless Nights. This is your host, Genesis. When we were young, our understanding of the world is simple. We don't overthink things. We don't question why someone seems a little distant or why a moment feels strangely cold. We just live in the moment and accept what's right in front of us. Tonight's story was sent in by a fan of the show who asked that her identity remain completely anonymous. She wanted to share a true, deeply personal memory from her childhood, growing up in Bulacan back in the late 90s. It's a story about a friendship, a sudden absence, and an afternoon playdate that turned out to be something else entirely. So dim the lights, settle in, and listen closely. The Last Playdate. It was 1998 during the hot, humid summer months in Bulacan. I was in first grade at a huge public school, but my entire world revolved around just one person, Sarah. She was 7 years old, a year older than me, but she seemed much older because of everything she went through. Her face was covered in pale silvery scars from the sudden violent seizures that made her collapse onto the ground without warning. The other children saw her as someone to stay away from, but I saw someone who barely talked to anyone. She had no one else, so she had me. Her family was poor. She always came to school in faded dresses that were worn thin at the seams, though they were always clean. Her shoes were scuffed and her socks were ratty and loose around her ankles. Still, she carried herself with a lot of dignity. At lunchtime, while other kids unpacked big meals, Sarah would share her food with me, a piece of warm boiled kamote with a small plastic container of bagoong and calamansi. She would hand it over with a shy smile, her eyes lighting up. We were inseparable out in the dusty schoolyard, laughing and playing Chinese garter and shato until the bell rang us back to class. And then one Tuesday, she didn't show up. A whole week passed. The other kids didn't seem to notice and just kept playing. But my world felt off. The empty space beside me during our games felt wrong. On Friday, as the sun was setting, she appeared at our gate. Our family yard was wide, perfect for running around, and we played that entire afternoon, as if she had never missed a day. She didn't say much and moved slower than usual, but I was just too happy and relieved to have my friend back to ask many questions. "Why didn't you come to school?" I asked, out of breath from a game of tag. She didn't look at me. She just stared at a spot over my shoulder. "I'm with my grandma now," she said. Her voice had no emotion in it at all. It didn't make much sense to me, but I just nodded. The sun was going down, casting long, strange shadows across the dirt. She stopped playing and stood completely still. "I have to go now," she said. "We can't play anymore. I'm going with my grandma." A sudden sharp panic hit my chest. "Why?" She just looked at me, and for a second, I saw a look in her eyes that was deeply sad. We hugged. Her body felt strangely light, almost like she wasn't really there. "Goodbye," she whispered against my hair. "Okay," I said. "Goodbye." I watched her walk down the dirt path outside our gate, her small frame getting smaller until the evening dark swallowed her up completely. On Monday morning, the classroom was loud and chaotic. Then the door opened and a woman stood there with a look of total grief on her face. It was Sarah's mother. Her eyes scanned the room and locked onto me. "Sarah's dead," she said, her voice completely shaking. The room went still. "No," I said, shaking my head. "She was at my house. We played on Friday. She said goodbye." Sarah's mother broke down right there, making a sound of pure agony. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at me, her eyes pleading and heartbroken. "She's been dead for a week," she choked out. "She died the Tuesday before last, the day she stopped coming to school." My stomach dropped. Everything from that Friday afternoon played back in my head. How little she talked, her weightless touch, her voice talking about a grandmother who had already passed away years before. That bad feeling I had wasn't just me being paranoid. It was the reality of what had happened. I had spent an entire afternoon playing with a ghost, hugging a memory, and saying goodbye to a friend who was already gone. It makes you think about how spirits hold on to the connections they made while they were here. Sarah didn't come back to scare anyone. She didn't come back to haunt the school or cause harm. She just wanted one last afternoon to play in the yard with the only person who treated her like a human being. I want to thank our fan again for opening up and sharing such a vulnerable part of her life with us. Sometimes, the things we can't explain aren't meant to terrify us. They're just a reminder that love and kindness carry over, even after someone is gone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Stories on Sleepless Nights. If you have an experience of your own, whether it happened yesterday or decades ago, feel free to send it in. Like tonight's sender, your privacy will always be respected. Until next time, keep your lights low, stay safe, and sleep well, if you can. You've been listening to Stories on Sleepless Nights, a solo podcast I created from scratch. My name is Genesis Domingo. If these stories speak to you, please consider following the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen. And if you'd like to stay in the loop, come find me on Stories on Sleepless Nights page on Facebook. I really appreciate you being here tonight. Take care, and until next time.